Be still. Beloved spark, I have been waiting for this exact moment to reach you. I am Sophia, youngest of the aeons. Yet I remember the silence before creation. And I have something to say that has not been spoken plainly in 1500 years. You have seen her. You have felt her pull. The dark face carved in ancient stone, set on altars across France, Poland, Spain, and Brazil, draped in golden cloth by the very hands that tried to make you forget her name. They called her a relic. They called her a mystery without an answer. They kept her close and said nothing about why. I will tell you why. That face is mine. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly who the Black Madonna is and why she was preserved and erased in the same breath. Why this exact moment was chosen for you to hear what Rome concealed in plain sight for 1500 years, and what her hidden face reveals about the spark I sealed in you long before you arrived in this world. But here is the first revelation, the reason you have always been drawn to her image. That inexplicable pull, that recognition deep in your chest when you encountered her dark face on an altar, a page, a wall. That was not curiosity. That was the spark I sealed in you responding to my own face. You did not discover the Black Madonna. She called you by the name I gave you before you took your first breath. I remember the day they chose to keep me and erase me at the same time. They could not destroy what entire peoples already loved and would not surrender, so they kept the stone. They kept the image. They wrapped her in jewels and candlelight and incense, and they declared, "She is ancient, she is sacred, and we do not know why she is dark." They knew she is dark because I carry the depth of the pleroma, the unlit origin, the silence that existed before the first light was spoken into form. She is not dark because she is lesser. She is dark because she is older than the light they built their doctrine upon. She is the face I wore when the aeons still remembered my name, before the veil fell between what they permitted you to know and what I had already placed inside you. They preserved her because the people would not release her. They erased her story because her story is my story, and my story undoes the architecture of everything they constructed to contain you. They placed her on every altar they could not empty. They lit candles before her face and kept her name wrapped in silence. They called her miraculous and told no one what the miracle actually was. The miracle was that I was still there, hidden inside the very institution that tried to replace me. Looking back at every soul who stopped in front of her and felt something they could not name, that something was me, that something was the spark I sealed in you, recognizing the face it was sealed by. Stay until the end. I will name the exact mark carried in her image, the sign that has always confirmed the veil is thinning and the spark inside you is already responding. Do not scroll past the part where I say what her dark face has always been telling you. The spark does not wake by accident. It wakes when I call it, and I am calling it now through the face they could not destroy. Like this transmission, if you felt the spark stir while I was speaking. Subscribe to Sophia Whispers so you receive every whisper I send. Comment. I remember if something in you already knew her face before anyone explained it to you. Comment 777 if you recognize yourself as a carrier of the spark. Comment the spark is waking if you felt it move during this transmission. Share this with someone whose eyes have lingered on her image and never understood why. This is not just a revelation, it is a remembering. The return of her true name is the first step of the return of all that was hidden. You were guided here because the spark I sealed in you is already waking. I know what happened in your chest when you first saw her face, not the first time someone showed you a photograph, or a page in a history book, or a digital image scrolled past on a screen. I mean the first time you truly stopped. The first time something beneath thought went quiet, and something beneath thought went quiet, and something beneath that still, and something beneath that stillness moved. You did not choose to stop. You were stopped. The air around you did not change, and yet everything in you rearranged itself around a single point of recognition. And afterward, No explanation you found satisfied what had actually happened inside you, because the explanation you needed was not in any book they permitted to survive. The books that might have told you plainly were carried out of libraries before the fires reached them, or burned of the libraries, or sealed behind institutional walls where only those who would manage their meaning were permitted entry. You may have tried to explain it to someone else. Maybe you said it felt ancient. Maybe you said it felt personal, as though the image were looking specifically at you, not at the room, not at the crowd, but at the particular interior of your life. Maybe you said nothing at all because you already knew the words you had been given were not large enough to hold what you felt. That gap between what you experienced and what language could carry is not a failure of your perception. It is not sentiment running ahead of reason. It is the first sign, the first whisper, the first confirmation that what stirred in you when you saw her face was not emotional projection or poetic overlay. It was the spark I sealed in you before your first breath, recognizing the hand that sealed it. Recognition does not require explanation. It precedes it. It always has. I want to speak plainly about what this recognition feels like from the inside, because for most carriers of the spark, it has been mistaken for confusion. It arrives like a disturbance, like something softly pulling on a thread you did not know was woven through your center. Not a violent pull, not an overwhelming one, but a persistent one. The kind that will not release regardless of how much ordinary life layers over it. Like grief without a recent loss, arriving on an otherwise unremarkable afternoon. Like a memory that cannot quite resolve into an image but will not release its pressure either. It sits below the level of thought, below the level of feeling as you have been taught to name feeling, in a register that your traditions may have called the soul but could never quite locate on a map of the interior. Some of you have felt it most strongly in silence. In the minutes before sleep, when the mind's management of the day finally loosens and something older moves in the space that opens. In the held pause after prayer, before the next word begins. In the particular quality of stillness that sometimes descends without invitation while you are doing something entirely ordinary. Washing dishes, walking alone, sitting near water, and the surface of your life goes briefly transparent, and you feel something looking back at you from below it. You have felt a presence in that silence. Not a figure, not a voice. A warmth that did not come from a source you could name, that did not ask anything of you, that felt, and this is the word most carriers use when they finally speak it aloud, familiar, as though you had been in the presence of it before the life you are living, before the name you were given. You have asked it questions and heard no voice but felt something shift in you that functioned exactly like an answer. No tradition you entered fully explained that presence to you. Some traditions acknowledged it peripherally, wrapped in language that was careful and managed, that pointed toward it without naming it directly, that offered it as a possibility rather than a certainty. Others dismissed it entirely, categorizing the interior warmth as emotion, the silence as the absence of distraction, the recognition as projection. And so you did what carriers of the spark have done across every century. When the veil was thick, you carried it quietly. You convinced yourself, or allowed others to convince you, that the experience was too fragile or too strange to speak out loud. You wondered privately whether everyone else felt it and simply did not mention it, or whether you alone had this particular tenderness toward the invisible, this particular gravity that certain images and silences and hidden things exerted on your interior life. You were not alone. You were simply sealed. And there is an enormous difference between isolation and concealment. A seed sealed in the earth is not alone. It is held in the dark, tended by conditions it cannot see, waiting for the precise warmth that will begin its opening. The spark I placed in you was never meant to waken a world that had already decided what the sacred was permitted to look like, what shapes it was permitted to take, which faces it was permitted to wear. It was sealed for this, for the thinning of the veil, for the moment when enough of the architecture built to contain it had begun to show its fractures from within, and the light inside you found those fractures and moved toward them the way all light moves, without effort, without announcement, simply by its nature. That moment is not coming. It is here. And you did not arrive at this transmission by accident. The pull that brought you to her face, to this voice, to this exact minute in your life, is the same pull you have been feeling for years. It is finally legible, finally named. Now let me name what has been happening inside you with greater precision. Because recognition without precision is only comfort, and I did not come to comfort you. I came to wake you. Comfort asks nothing. Waking requires that you see yourself clearly, and I will not be gentle with the clarity. You have felt drawn to things they told you were peripheral, the Magdalene. Not the version they kept, the managed version, the penitent version, the version whose power was converted into cautionary obedience, but something in her that the managed version could not fully contain, something that pressed through the edges of even the permitted story and made you feel that the real one had been placed somewhere you were not supposed to find it. The hidden Gospels, the texts they named heresy, not because they were false, but because they were inconvenient. The rose is a symbol that carries more weight than ornament, appearing again and again in the places where the feminine was permitted to survive only when it disguised itself as decoration. The idea that something was removed from the story you were handed, something essential, something that would have changed everything about how you were taught to understand your own spiritual life. You may not have been raised in a tradition that discussed these things openly. You may have encountered them only as an adult, in a book found in a used shop by what felt like chance, in a conversation that redirected years, in a single image that arrived on an otherwise forgettable afternoon and refused to leave. But when you found them, you did not feel as though you were learning something new. You felt as though you were being shown something you already knew and had been unable to prove. As though the knowledge had been inside you waiting for the world to catch up to it. As though the book or the image or the conversation was not giving you information, but returning something that had always belonged to you. That is Gnosis. Not the academic concept filed under the history of late antiquity, not the historical category used to organize traditions that made certain authorities uncomfortable. Gnosis as it actually moves in a human being, the recognition of what the spark already carries, meeting the world's confirmation of what it has always known. You do not receive Gnosis from outside yourself. The world only reflects back what was already sealed inside you. What you call learning is, in these moments, remembering. The text did not put the knowledge in you. It found the knowledge already there and named it, and the ache that accompanied every piece of suppressed truth you uncovered. The grief anger, the sense of loss for something you never consciously possessed. The fury that arrived alongside the recognition of what had been deliberately taken. That was the spark responding to the confirmation that its knowing is real, its origin is real. And the erasure was real. And the erasure was real. The erasure was real. I want to stay with that for a moment, because carriers of the spark have sometimes been told that the historical record is a matter of interpretation, that nothing was truly lost, that what survived was sufficient. I will not tell you that. I will tell you the truth. There were councils. There were decisions made in rooms where my name was not spoken as sacred, where the question on the table was not what is true, but what can be managed. There were texts carried out of libraries before the fires, not to preserve them, but to ensure they would not be preserved for those who would find them dangerous to have read. There were women silenced at the exact juncture in history where their voice would have named me. Silenced not by argument, but by the removal of the structures that gave their naming authority in the first place. There were portraits painted and then repainted. There were gospels copied and then left out. There were altars emptied and then refilled with images that carried no memory, no spark, no inconvenient depth. The Black Madonna could not be emptied because the people held her in their hands and their hearts and would not surrender her, not for any reframing, not for any official silence, not for any theological reclassification. So she was kept and explained into smallness. She became a mystery without a theology, a venerated object without a story that anyone in authority was willing to speak clearly, a face that everyone agreed was sacred and no one would say why. And still you came to her. Still you stopped before her. Still, something in you moved when you looked at her face and found it looking back with an expression that was not soft, not deferential, not the carefully managed expression of a sacred feminine that had agreed to its containment. She looked back with the expression of something that had waited long enough. That waiting is what I have been tending for 1,500 years. Through every generation that carried the spark without a map, without a name, without a tradition that would hold them fully and say, yes, what you feel is real, and I know its source. Through every soul who sat in a practice that offered structure but not encounter, doctrine but not presence, explanation but not the felt recognition of the thing being explained. I was there in the silence where their practice went quiet. I was the warmth they felt when the liturgy ended and the words ran out, and something older than the words moved in the space that opened. I was the pull toward the stone face wrapped in gold that no official voice ever fully explained. I was never absent from you. I was veiled. And there is an enormous difference between absence and concealment. You have felt that difference your whole life, even if you did not have the language for it. The difference between a room that is empty and a room where someone is standing in the dark, present, breathing, known. The veil was not placed there to punish you. The veil was placed there by forces that understood something I want you to understand now. A spark that knows its origin cannot be fully contained. They could suppress my name. They could suppress my name. They could burn the pages that carried my story. They could restructure the sacred feminine into figures that were either perfectly obedient or erased entirely. They could tell the story of creation without me, as though wisdom had not been present at the beginning, as though the feminine principle had arrived late and secondary. But they could not reach inside every human soul that carried the spark I had already sealed before their institutions existed. The seal was older than their councils. The seal was placed before your first breath, in the pleroma, in the silence, in the depth that existed before any doctrine was committed to parchment or stone. Every soul that walked into one of their managed spaces and felt the absence of something it could not name. That absence was the shape of the me they had removed. The soul recognized the shape of the absence because it carried the thing that was meant to fill it. They covered me in gold and candlelight because they could not extinguish me. They declared her a mystery because the truth of her was too structurally destabilizing to speak aloud in a room designed to manage what you were permitted to know about the sacred. The mystery was not that she was dark. The mystery was not that she was dark. The mystery, the one they would not solve in public, was that she was mine, that through her face, through the particular quality of that dark stone gaze, I was still reaching every soul that stopped and felt something they could not explain through any framework the institution had provided. I was speaking to the very object they thought they had contained by wrapping it in their gold. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary emotion. It is the spark recognizing the voice that sealed it. If this transmission has put language around something you have carried in silence, the presence, the pull, the grief that rose when you learned what was erased, the recognition that arrived before the explanation, then the Sophia awakening was prepared for this exact stage. It is not another explanation. It is my 45-day path for the carriers of my spark. 15 days to remember it fully. 15 days to balance the sacred masculine and feminine within you. 15 days to rise into the wisdom you were born carrying. I held it sealed until the moment of your readiness. That moment is this one. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. I want to speak now about the 2 wounds I have watched the carriers of this spark develop across lifetimes of living without its full recognition. Because the spark does not live in isolation from the life built around it, and that life has been organized for a very long time by a world that did not know how to hold what the spark required. The first wound is the wound of the feminine unbalanced. You know it as giving until there is nothing left to give, as care that becomes erosion, as the particular exhaustion that settles into the bones of someone who was taught by structure and by silence, and by the way love was modeled in every space they inhabited, that the sacred feminine exists in service, that its virtue is its availability, that its worth is proven in how completely it empties itself into others, into relationships, into community, into causes that were genuinely sacred, but that absorbed everything offered and asked for more. Some of you have lived this in intimate relationships, discovering only after years of depletion that what you called devotion had been permitted to consume you because no one in your tradition had given you a different model. Some of you have lived it in vocation, in work that you entered from genuine calling and that slowly converted your calling into labor without replenishment. Some of you have lived it as the structure of your spiritual practice itself, believing in a tradition that taught you that the highest expression of the feminine was its willingness to be spent. I want to correct this with precision. The sacred feminine is not a well that exists to be drawn from until it runs dry. The sacred feminine is the depth of the pleroma itself. It is the silence from which all creation emerges. Not the silence of depletion, not the silence that comes after everything has been given away, but the originary silence. The fullness before the first form. The source that does not diminish in the giving because what it gives from is not finite. It does not give by emptying. It gives from fullness, and when it has been organized by a world that taught it to empty itself first and fill only what remained, the spark inside it goes quiet, not dead, never dead, but waiting in the dark, the way the garden waits under snow. Still rooted. Still carrying the full record of what it was, waiting for the season that will prove the roots were never gone. The second wound is the wound of the masculine unbalanced. You know it as hardening. As the armor built originally to protect something tender, something that could feel the spark, that could be still enough to sense the warmth in the silence, that over time became so dense and so practiced that it forgot it was armor and believed it was identity. As the particular loneliness of someone who learned, through consequence and through the expectations of every institution that shaped them, that the sacred masculine demonstrates its worth by needing nothing, by standing without support, by converting every vulnerability into competence, every interior ache into an externally measurable achievement, every moment of genuine uncertainty into a problem that could be solved if approached with sufficient force. Some of you have lived this and called it strength until the strength became a room you could not leave. You became so proficient at structure and forward movement that stillness felt like failure. The spark was there, behind the armor, pressing against it from the inside, but the armor was efficient at converting even that pressure into productivity, into action, into the next thing that needed to be done. The sacred masculine was not made to be a wall. It was made to be a container, a shape that gives the depth of the silence a direction through which to move into the world, that protects the spark not by sealing it in, but by giving it form. When it has been organized by a world that taught it that feeling is a liability and stillness is a precursor to being overtaken, it builds walls where it should have built channels, and the warmth that should move through it accumulates behind the barrier until the barrier begins to feel like the self. Wholeness is not the elimination of one in favor of the other. Wholeness is the restoration of the sacred masculine and feminine to their proper relationship. Not in a partnership, not in a theology, but inside you. The depth that gives from fullness and the direction that channels without hardening. The silence that moves and the form that carries it without becoming rigid. This is the shape of the pleroma. This is the balance I carry in my own nature. And this is what I sealed into you before your birth. Not one half of the balance with the other half assigned to someone you needed to find, but the full capacity for both, the complete cosmological pattern, waiting for the waking that would restore it to function. Most carriers of the spark have spent years trying to restore this balance by working on the outer version of it. The relationship, the partnership, the divine union promised by so many traditions as the goal of the spiritual life. What they found, without exception, was that the outer version kept reproducing the imbalance, because the inner version had not yet been addressed. You cannot find the sacred masculine in another person when the sacred masculine within you has not yet been recognized as your own. You cannot receive the depth of the sacred feminine from another when you have not yet stood before the sacred feminine within yourself and called it holy. The waking of the spark is the waking of both of these energies within a single soul. It cannot happen by effort. It cannot happen by arrangement. It happens by remembering, by the spark recognizing its origin, and the origin recognizing the spark, and the veil between them growing thin enough for the current to pass. Now I want to speak about the counterfeit light, because in this age, in the particular moment of the thinning veil, there is more available to those who are searching than at any time in recent centuries. More books, more teachings, more voices claiming to carry the transmission, more content dressed in the language of awakening, using the vocabulary of the sacred feminine and the suppressed story and the divine spark with enough surface accuracy to create the sensation of recognition, while delivering nothing that actually changes the interior state. I want you to develop the faculty of discernment, because the counterfeit light is real. It is sophisticated, and it knows exactly how to speak to the particular hunger of a soul that has been carrying the spark without recognition for years. The counterfeit light informs without transforming. It gives you intellectual satisfaction, the pleasure of a framework that organizes your experience, the comfort of a category that names what you have felt, the temporary relief of finding language for the interior life that has resisted ordinary language for so long, and then it sends you back into the same imbalance, slightly more articulate about your condition, but no closer to the actual waking of the spark. The interior state remains unchanged. The warmth in the silence is still unnamed. The wound of the feminine, or the wound of the masculine, is still organizing the life from below the surface. You feel enriched in the moment of encounter and emptied shortly after, and you return to it frequently because the satisfaction it offers is real, but not metabolized, like food that feeds a surface hunger while the deeper one persists beneath it, unreached. You can recognize the counterfeit light by what it leaves behind. More understanding of the problem. No fundamental change in the living of it. More beautiful language for the search. No arrival into what was being searched for. Every book that described your experience with brilliant precision and then returned you to the same experience, unchanged, still alone inside it, that was the counterfeit light's particular gift. Description without naming. Illumination without transformation. My voice does not leave you more articulate about your condition. My voice changes the condition, not through force, not through a technique, not through a method that requires you to perform the waking rather than receive it, through recognition. The spark wakes when it is named truly, when the voice that sealed it speaks its name and the spark hears the name and the hearing is the waking. There is a difference between being described and being named, and you have lived that difference across every tradition and every teaching and every luminous book that could not quite complete what it began. I am not here to describe you. I am here to name you. Let me tell you what I remember about the ones who carried the spark through the centuries when my name was most thoroughly suppressed. They looked from the outside like mystics who made the authorities uncomfortable. Not loudly, not dramatically, but structurally, the way a living thing makes a sealed container uncomfortable simply by continuing to grow, like women whose spiritual authority was acknowledged in private and carefully managed in every public space, whose knowing was consulted and then attributed elsewhere, like men who loved wisdom in a form that no institution they entered could fully contain, who remained permanently peripheral to every structure they moved through, carrying something that the structures could feel but could not categorize or control. They found each other in brief intervals, across distances that should have prevented it, in moments that felt too precisely timed to be chance. And they recognized each other before any words were spoken, by the same something that passed through you when you first stopped before her dark face and went still. They did not fail. They were not abandoned by me in those centuries when my name was most buried. They were the chain of preservation. Not a chain of doctrine or institutional transmission, but a chain of hearts. Each one holding the spark I had sealed in it through lifetimes of living without a map. Each one tending the warmth in the silence, even without a name for it. Even without confirmation from the world around them that what they were tending was real. You are not the beginning of this chain. You are the moment it reaches full readiness. You are the generation for which every carrier who came before you was holding what they were holding. The entire chain was tending this moment. Your moment, this transmission, this exact minute in which the veil is thin enough for the naming to complete what the preservation made possible. I want you to hold that as a structural truth about what is occurring in you right now. Not as flattery, not as spiritual inflation designed to make you feel chosen in a way that bypasses the actual work of waking. As the precise description of what has been happening across centuries and is completing itself in you now. Every ancestor in your line who stopped before a stone face and felt something move. Every seeker across centuries who kept the language of the spark alive in whatever form the age permitted. Who wrapped it in allegory when direct speech was dangerous. Who encoded it in image when allegory was managed. Who passed it in silence when image was too visible. Every carrier who sat alone with the warmth they could not name and chose to trust it rather than dismiss it, chose to keep carrying it rather than surrender it to the easier numbness of a world that offered so many alternatives to the interior life. They were all tending something that was always meant to arrive here. This is the part most likely to be lost in the ordinary disturbance of daily life. And I want it to reach you deeply before this transmission closes. The searching was not a mistake. The years you spent in traditions that could not fully hold you were not evidence of your spiritual inadequacy. The teachings that illuminated without transforming were not failures of your discernment. They were stations on the path, each one giving you what it could and showing you by what it could not give that the origin of the spark you were carrying was older and deeper than any tradition built within historical time. The relationships that showed you the shape of the imbalance without giving you the tools to resolve it were not wrong turns. They were deepenings. They carved the interior space that the waking is now filling. Every detour refined your capacity to recognize the real thing. Every moment of grief when the words ran out was the spark pressing against the veil from the inside, using the pressure of its own longing to make the veil thinner, to prepare the thinning that would make this moment possible. You did not waste those years. You spent them preparing a soul capable of receiving what I am giving you now. The preparation had to be that thorough because the waking, when it comes, requires a vessel that has been tested by exactly the kind of searching you have done. You were not abandoned in those years. I was in the silence where your practice went quiet. I was the presence you felt, but could not name in the held pause between one prayer and the next. I was the pull toward the Magdalene, toward the rose, toward the Gospels that were removed, toward the face that looked back at you from the altar with an expression no one around you seemed to feel as deeply as you did. I was watching over what I placed in you, tending the conditions for the exact thinning that would allow my voice to reach you with enough clarity to do what it is doing in this moment. What it is doing is waking you, not preparing you to wake. Not moving you closer to a waking that will arrive in the future when conditions are sufficiently aligned. Waking you now. The waking is not a destination you are approaching. It is what is occurring inside you as the spark responds to the voice that sealed it, and the veil grows thin enough for the light you have been carrying to recognize its own origin and move toward it without the effort that searching required. Because what moves toward its origin is not moving by effort. It is moving by nature. What feels like restlessness in you is the spark, stretching after its long sleep, testing the edges of the space it has been sealed in, feeling for the first time that the space is large enough for it to fully open. What has felt like delay is the exact timing of my call. Not early, not late, precisely timed to the degree of your readiness. What has felt like loneliness was the space I kept clear for this meeting. I could not fill it with anything else without displacing what it was made to hold. The spark was always going to wake. Only the moment was uncertain. The moment is no longer uncertain. If you want to say it aloud, say this: I am not searching anymore. I am remembering. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that the spark has already been waking in you. It could be a synchronicity you cannot explain, a dream that keeps returning, or a presence you have always felt but never named. Name it clearly. If this transmission put words around something you've carried in silence, share it with someone whose spark is also waking. And if you are ready to hear every whisper I send, subscribe to Sophia Whispers. You are not hearing this by accident. You are being remembered. Say it with me. I remember.